why would God allow bad things to take place?
Well, I mean, that's not a question I have. I mean, if people have the
No, I,
ability to make decisions, obviously sometimes they're going to make bad decisions. I think the complaint from the atheists is not that people have the ability to do bad things, although some people do make a good argument for that to not be the case. I think the better question is, why does God allow horrific things that he causes, like children being born blind, children being born with bone cancer, earthquakes, tornadoes, volcanoes? Those are things that he controls. Those aren't decisions I've made.
well, okay, and okay, so to that point, um, in your perception of things that you can handle, when you think of babies being born blind, is that something that hurts your feelings, or is that something that makes you feel like, oh man, that makes me sad about that?
Well, it certainly makes me sad. Now, if it's your own child, I don't think sad even remotely covers it. I think if you are born with a child who has a severe disability or is sick or chronically ill, sad, it quite literally is more like despair.
Right, right. As traumatic despair. So I think it would be safe to say that in the total overall context of things, why a God would allow man to endure certain things would be kind of like, when you work out, and the whole science behind working out is breaking down a muscle,
Hmm.
and you don't get any gains without pain. Well, your body responds to that level of stress in order to repair. So does your immune system, and so does your mind. Your mind solves complex things that put stress on it to become intelligent, like somebody like you. So
Sure, but sorry, go ahead.
if I were in totality of looking at the total circumstance, would I allow certain things that would be to me minuscule, but to you might be traumatic? I just don't think that it would affect me in the same way, because I am looking at things in a totality.
Yeah, but what about the child that dies after 6 years of bone cancer?
Well, again, that would be something to that would be something that, if I was personally connected to that, if I was a supreme being, then it would be like me watching my child bump their knee on a dresser.
No, no, I'm talking about the
See
child. What does the child get out of it?
it, but okay. Well, what does a child get out of going in timeout?
No, no,
To
no,
the
no.
child,
The child's
to the
not. The
child.
child's not developed. It's dead after 6 months.
Yes, but I'm saying, in relation to the child, a baby screaming thinks you're trying to kill it when you sit it down.
No, the
So
baby
what?
died, is what I'm saying. In the scenario I'm giving you, right? There's a child born with a bone cancer. After 6 months, the baby's dead. What did the baby learn?
Not the baby. What did you learn?
That's not my question. My question is, what did the baby learn?
What did the baby learn? That what did the baby learn? That's
Yeah.
that's like a I that's like a plausible. The, what did the baby learn?
Hmm.
Um, is it about the baby?
I know. Yeah, God is using the suffering of the innocent to teach adults a lesson. That's what you're positing, right? So
I
do
mean,
you think that God has no other recourse, an all powerful entity has no other recourse to teach adults proper behavior without making innocent people suffer?
Um, well, what I do know, as like the exercise analogy, and there are times where you learn from trauma, and there are times evolution. If evolution is evolution, evolution solves problems. There are conflicting problems in all species to where they evolve. If any of those problems had never presented itself, then in science, I guess it would be safe to say that you wouldn't be here on TikTok able to perceive or go live. So evolution is a direct response to in overcoming of trauma, because you have to
Right.
for
But
fish to breathe in
I'm just trying
water,
to
you
stay
have.
focused here, right? So I'll lay out the argument so you can kind of see what I'm doing. So the problem with the problem of evil, that's the topic we're on right now, is that you're saying God needs to have like these innocent babies suffer and die. He needs to do it because when these innocent babies suffer and die, like the adults that are around are they're like learning, they're growing, right? So you're saying it's necessary pain. But I'm pushing back on it and saying, listen, if your God needs to kill innocent babies to teach people how to deal with pain or trauma, then either one, he's not all powerful, or number two, he's not all good. You got to one of those two things has got to hit the road.
Well, that again, it goes back to, okay, is evolution necessary? Like,
Wait, do
it's
you believe in
I
evolution?
can well, I see evolution. Things evolve.
Oh,
Period. I mean, that's not something that's
okay.
something anybody can see. Things evolve. They
Listen, I'm
adapt
sorry.
to.
I assumed you didn't believe in evolution because most Christians don't. I shouldn't have made
No,
that
no.
assumption. Okay,
I
so
mean,
so you do believe in
evolution
evolution.
is, yeah, I mean, how evolution of the actual term is to evolve. So it's not even something to believe in. It's shit. Stuff evolves, right?
I listen.
Like,
I agree. We're on the same page. We agree. Evolution is real. Okay.
right.
So
So
could God accomplish like whatever evolution is doing? Right? Could God accomplish it another way?
in a way that just makes everyone happy and
Nope. I didn't
no
say
one
that.
in.
Nope. Didn't say
Yes,
that.
he could. So yes,
Oh, well, there you go.
he could do it any way that he would choose to do it.
Okay, so God could have created the world without the unnecessary suffering, and he chose to create the world with the necessary suffering or the unnecessary suffering, which means you've got to get rid of this like fictitious property of God that he's perfectly loving and perfectly just because he's not if he chooses the world that has all the unnecessary suffering.
Okay, to your point, I understand your point, but check this out. Okay, so if the story in God references a place where there's a heaven, and if this is a boot camp, then I mean, I would see validation for what happens here to reference where you go from here. I'm not a sensitive person, so when I see certain things, I do. It's sad. I love children, like children and old people, all my life. Children and old people. Uh, I have a very emotional connection to those. I don't like nobody messing with children. I can't even watch a movie where something happens to a child. Like I like turn it off.
Have you read the
Don't never
Bible?
let me see it. Yes, I
God's
started reading the Bible
God's murdering
a
babies left
long,
and
long,
right in
long
that
time
book.
ago. Well, at the end of the day, if you look at us all as a species, I mean, even a deer loves their baby, I guess, in a sense. A deer shows emotion when something is just eating their baby. So if how can I say ants don't do the same thing? Our emotional connection does not define a greater purpose. We don't have a connection to a roach and their babies. We don't have a connection to rats and their babies. So if I created everything, I think a lot of times humans just take the universe experience as though all things aren't alive. It is not a planet alive. It's not the fish alive, but we will eat a fish, or is not a plant alive. So if I created everything, I'm not going to um, make man. I'm not going to make man a super sensitive point
Okay,
if I
so
created
this
billions of
so the
different
suffering
organisms.
of mankind's not actually relevant.
I mean, is the suffering of
So
ants
so
relevant?
our human suffering is no different than the suffering of like the honeybees and the ants.
I mean, who has the right to say that it is or isn't?
So then Jesus' suffering was meaningless.
I can't say that it was. I can't say that it wasn't.
Well, it has to be meaningless. If my suffering is meaningless, then certainly Jesus' suffering is
Well,
extra meaningless, especially if you think he's a God who already knew he was just going to resurrect. Completely meaningless.
well, you have the right to put the word meaningless on it. I'm saying I'm reserving the right to say I don't determine whether it was meaningful or meaningless. I don't have the right or power to do that. All I'm saying is if I was a supreme creator of the cosmos, billions of organisms down to bacteria, down to cells, neurons, and atoms. I I as a human might be egotistical to make myself the center point of feelings in the universe. But if I were to create trillions of different things, I would not be able to relate to how you relate the same way as we wouldn't relate to a chicken having eggs and stealing their eggs and kidnapping their eggs from them and having them lay more eggs. We
Are you a
we
vegetarian?
disassociate, huh?
Are you a vet?
No, heck no.
Why not?
I because I like meat.
Okay, so the suffering,
That's
so
my
the suffering
point.
in your worldview, the
That's my
suffering of
point.
animals isn't all that important.
That I mean, not in the way that I live my life. To
Yeah, exactly.
but check this out. Now, guess what? I would have a different context if guess what? I've never went out and actually killed my food. I may never
Hmm.
ever eat meat again if I were to go and have to cut my chickens up and catch them and cut them up.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Well,
Perspective. Uh-huh.
let me agree with you there. If we all had to execute our own animals, there'd be a lot more vegetarians in the world. I agree with you there. I think our conversation is getting long in the tooth, but I want to cover one more passage with you, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Sure. So I think that what God does through the problem of suffering is one problem. I think there's maybe even a bigger problem where in the Bible, God repeatedly does and brags about doing it, punishing innocent people for crimes they never committed. To me, this is incongruent with a God that's perfectly just. So you probably already know the story of David and Bathsheba and the punishment that God gave for that whole mess. Well, most people remember that the child was stricken ill for 7 days and then executed. That was one part of the punishment. The second part of the punishment is what people forget. And this is what happens. God says through Nathan, "Thus saith the Lord, I will raise up trouble against you from within your own house, and I will take your wives before your eyes, and I will give them to your neighbor, and he will lie with your wives in broad daylight. For you did it secretly, but I will do this thing before all Israel in broad daylight." And so God then has 10 of David's wives uh, graped by Absalom in a couple chapters later. But those wives didn't do anything wrong. Why are they getting punished?
Well, now I can't say whether they were graped by the instruction of God or not. I can say that man does all type of wild things. Now, if you take what you're reading, that's like looking at science. So you're reading something that someone else wrote about someone, something or someone, and you weren't present. So
But God
I
took credit
would,
for it.
I mean, you're in what you're reading.
Yeah.
So when
Is
you
the text
take,
wrong?
well, what transliteration are you reading? Is this from a Hebrew text transliteration? Because a lot of things that are written in Hebrew and the purposes behind the actual words become different in our English
Hmm.
transliteration of things. So could I say, based on exactly what you just read, could I say that that is what God intended? I can't say that. I
Well,
can say that okay, that's probably what man chose to do and write.
do
I
you
don't
think
know.
do you think all the English translators got it wrong?
No, I don't think they got everything wrong, but I don't know what they
Well,
got right or
well,
got wrong.
what word in here should we translate differently?
I'm not the scholar to say that, but what I'm
Because
saying
I
is
have
when
read
you
it
say
in Hebrew before. It says exactly what it says in English.
no, no, that the Hebrew is completely different
Oh, it's
than what
not.
it says in English.
Oh, it's certainly not the case.
If you pull up a direct Hebrew translation
Hmm.
for the passage in which you just
Yeah, you want to do an interlinear readout with me?
yeah, that's cool, or Strong's or
Well,
something,
well,
or
Strong's ain't gonna help you.
some concordance, some sort of concordance of a direct transliteration.
Well, you don't want a transliteration. Transliteration doesn't do you anything. That just copies the letters over. You want a translation,
Okay,
which
okay,
is
a
what we're going to
translation.
read. It says, "Thus saith the Lord: I will raise up trouble against you." He's doing it. I will do it.
Okay, great, and I can agree. I will raise up trouble against you.
And he
Now,
literally says, "I will take," in the first person,
okay, I will take. Continue.
his wives.
No, okay, I will
God's
take this.
raising up the trouble. God's taking
Let's
his
get to the great.
wives.
Let's get to the great part.
Well, there's no word in biblical Hebrew for grape. That word doesn't
Oh,
exist.
exactly. So how can you were reading me context, and that word doesn't even exist in Hebrew, but it was spoken and given to the Hebrew people. So how can we right now argue a point when we're arguing a point of something that was conceptually, we have a concept of something,
Do you
but
think that
even
the
when
Hebrew people had a way of describing grape?
how could you not?
Exactly. So they did have a way of describing it. And what they typically used were words like we saw in the prior passage, where somebody took a woman and then did something to her, like going into her, which is exactly what happened in chapter 16. It says Absalom
Well,
said to Absalom, by the way, is the son of David who's trying to take over David's throne. He's running a coup against his father, and he's asking for advice from a former advisor of the king as to what to do to solidify his power now that he chased his father out of the palace. So he says, "Give us your counsel. What should we do?" And Ahithophel said to Absalom, "Go into your father's concubines, the ones that he left to look after the house. And after all, and all Israel will hear that you have made yourself odious to your father, and the hands of all who are with you will be strengthened." So they pitched a tent for Absalom on the roof, and Absalom went into his father's concubines in the sight of all of Israel. So Absalom, in a display of force over his own father, captures 10 of David's wives and forcibly goes into them on top of the palace.
okay,
That's called rape.
if I go into you, if I say I'm going to go into you, if a old school dad say I'm going to lay into you, does that necessarily mean that he's referencing that he's going to grape you, or does that mean that uh get he's going to get on you, or he's going to get in your head, or he's going to whatever? Like, I can't say. You can say
I
what
can
that.
say, yeah, in the Bible, when it says going into a woman, it refers to having sex with them. Want me to show you where that is?
Yeah.
Yeah, that shows up in like 5 or 6 different places. The first place and the most common is Deuteronomy chapter 21 and 22. So let's go to chapter 22. It says, "Suppose a man marries a woman, but after going into her dislikes her, and makes up charges against her, slandering her by saying, 'I married this woman, but when I lay with her, I did not find evidence of her virginity.'" Going into a woman is the act of lying with her in the Bible.
Well, you can argue that point,
Yeah,
but there
I
is
know.
a there. But guess what, though? There is a purpose of why there was going into her and laying with her. It never had to deviate from going into her, but it specifically stated laying with her. So going into her, I can't say. I get what you're saying.
I
I
don't
just
think you
can't
actually do.
vouch. No, no, no. I'm very intelligent. What I'm saying is, I'm not going to force going into as being laying when when it's purposefully. made two different references.
It's not two
So
different references. It's literally the same thing. The punishment that Absalom is doing to the concubines is comparable. And the reason why it's chosen as the punishment is because David committed adultery by sleeping with another woman. So the punishment is, David, you went into this woman who wasn't yours. Now I'm going to have somebody go into your wives. That's the punishment. That's why the punishment makes sense. The
okay,
the phrase the
I can
phrase
get that.
going into a woman always means sex in the Bible. There's no other instance in the Bible, not a single instance where it means anything other but that.
Okay, so basically, someone graped someone, and then it's saying that God said, "I'm going to have someone grape your wives," right?
Yeah, God says he's causing it. It's a punishment.
Okay, okay. Well, in the sense of that, if okay, so I can logically understand that. I mean, I'm not a scholar. I was just arguing my point.
Fair enough.
But if that is a reference to things, um, again, I can't say with total, I can't say that on a personal human level of suffering. I can't say that I would pick your level of suffering over my total understanding just because you have a sensitive tie. Again,
No, no,
if a chick,
this is not about suffering. This is about justice, right? So
what is
the
justice?
women
What
took on
is
the
justice?
punishment for the crimes that their husband committed.
But the women are a totality of mankind.
No,
Mankind and women bear the total burden
women
amongst
are
each other.
individual autonomous people, right? So like if you commit a
They're human.
sin, if you
They're
commit a
human.
sin, your significant other shouldn't be punished for it.
No, that's in the way of your consciousness and perception
No,
as a human.
that's what the word
That
just means. What do you think the definition of justice is?
what is the definition of just?
Do you know what it means?
Display it. I want to see what
The
you're
definition of
going to.
justice is when you get what you deserve, whether it's good or bad. And typically it's proportionate.
Okay, so that would be justice to me, and I'm gonna tell you why. I'm gonna
Wait,
tell
wait.
you why.
It would be just for your wife to get graped for your sin.
I'm gonna tell you in the totality of things.
It's a shame
Okay,
this conversation
you
started
ever
out so nicely, and now you're justifying
no, but
grape.
guess what? But no, it's not that. That would be a minuscule way to kind of that. No, what I'm saying is this: if you
For
have
any of the
four
women
children,
in the audience right now, I apologize if you were SA'd. What you went through is not minuscule. It shouldn't be minimized. What you went through was
no,
horrific.
you're minimizing it. But
No, I'm certainly
what I'm
not.
saying is this. What I'm saying is this. And look, I that is completely wrong. I'm gonna tell you what I would do to someone that essays someone. I honestly think you should throw them off of a bridge into a burning fire. So
Okay,
I'm
so
I'm
that's
just
what we should do to
speaking.
Yahweh then. Yahweh should be thrown off a bridge into the
But
fire.
guess what? That's because I have a sensitive relationship to my emotional connection to humans. I am speaking on the fact of if I am a supreme being that created millions and trillions of organisms, how do I not, if I have four kids, and if I say, hey, if Tommy doesn't clean up his room, everybody's getting punished.
Fucking Tommy.
Okay, so take this. Hey, everybody in the chat named Tommy. Sorry. So what I'm saying is this: if you take simple things that we do that we don't mean any actual harm to the other three children, but we're trying to teach them a lesson. Let's not. I'm not speaking as myself. If I am a total supreme and created all of the cosmos, the differences of essaying and all of that stuff would be no different to me than if I took and said, hey, if you don't walk your sister home from school, then you're not going to have any TV for a month. Why? It's the same way that when I walk on ants, I don't go home sad. And it might sound harsh and cruel, but we on a day-to-day basis, we don't care about other organisms and things in that sense. So
Right.
if I
I
were to
don't know
total
if you're
spring
tracking though. We're
bloom,
talking about whether or not God is just right now.
I believe so because it's in the same way we would group a group of people and have them endure whatever they your kid might cry if you punish one all of them for what one of them did. They might hate you. They might grow up and say,
But is it
my
just?
dad punished me. My dad
Yep.
punished
But is
me
it just?
because my sister did something.
But is it
But you're
just?
as a father, you're going to say, you're going to have a justifiable, conscious
But
understanding
is
for
it
what he was
just
that
to
day.
punish people who didn't do the wrong thing?
He is punishing mankind. Yes, it's just because
Okay,
if
so
based
if
on
you
the
committed a
story,
sin, you'd be okay with your son going to jail for you?
my son, my son dies because of my sin, based on
No,
the
I'm
storyline.
not asking
Based
about the
on the
biblical
story.
story. I'm asking if a judge sent your child to prison for a crime you committed, you'd be okay with that.
Guess what? I think that that should be something that is a part of the justice system. You know
Oh,
why? You know
all
why? You
right.
know
Listen,
why? You know
I'm gonna
why?
hold
But
on.
check it
I'm
out.
gonna save you
But
the
wait,
embarrassment. Listen, I think deep down you're probably a nice guy. You came up here being respectful. We've had a good back and forth, but I need you to pause and reflect. And you're at a point where if I let you keep talking, you're going to embarrass your mother and your father if they're still alive, and I hope they're not watching this. So listen, we got to cut this thing off. I think you've said everything you need to say at this point. Anything else beyond this, you're going to make it worse for yourself. The minute you say it's okay to lock up your own children for crimes they never committed, I think we're done. We're done. But look back at this conversation a week from now, 2 weeks from now, and ask yourself, are the things I'm saying crazy, or am I coping to justify the nonsense of the Bible? Because I think most people here recognize that it's the latter of the two. Triple Cross, thank you for being here. I appreciate the cordialness, but we're going to move on to the next guest. Thank you.